Hi everyone. I'm sorry to be missing this year's conference. My wife and I are celebrating our 25th anniversary up in Montreal. Each year there's some newcomers to this event, so I'd like to welcome you to a market, a strange market, that produces and sells a product that you cannot see. It's a product that customers have to use the instant it's made. It's a product that nobody ever wants to think about, that everyone takes for granted, but when it's not available, the economy shuts down and people can die. It's into that weird, bizarre world that the legislature wades each year to promote jobs and work on the climate crisis. Next year, for example, we'll start learning how mandating solar power on most new homes will affect our grid. No doubt there'll be some good and some challenges. And add to that the mix of enormous risk of fire now and PG&E's Chapter 22 bankruptcy. That's two Chapter 11s. And the likelihood that rates will skyrocket right around the same time that multi-day power shutoffs become common. These are big deals, and it means that remaking California's entire energy market is squarely on the table. It's almost certain the public's going to be asked to pay for most of PG&E's past and maybe future debt. And that means we're likely to see electric rates increase, maybe 50% or more for the foreseeable future. And because PG&E will have to fully pay any costs from new fires before it's allowed to emerge from bankruptcy, we need to assume a lot of shutoffs are going to happen late this year. So if you're in the industry right now, you're not bored thinking about all these problems. Customers may not want to think about electricity, but paying a lot more money for less reliable service is going to jolt the public into thinking about our world. The public's going to have some opinions, and it will be difficult to convince ratepayers or taxpayers to pick up the tab for a corporation's past mistakes and potentially their future risk, particularly if we don't enjoy the financial return of our public investment. So our state will always be searching for a way forward, a way out, for ways to remake our system, and for ways to pay for the billions needed for fire hardening and grid maintenance, and for ways to ensure that those operating our transmission and distribution grids have clear reasons to create safer and more reliable service. And so the governor has already put municipalization on the table, and that might make sense. Publicly owned utilities in California have customer rates that range from 30 to 50% lower than PG&E's rates today. And not because of any magic, but because their cost of money is low and they have no reason to buy more energy or build more capacity than they need. So if PG&E was wholly converted to public ownership, the money could pay for undergrounding and other expensive grid improvements over time. But a century of rules has made the process of municipalization difficult and expensive, at least when a utility is not in bankruptcy. CCAs, on the other hand, are a lot easier to set up, and they bring a partial financial solution to the table. CCAs can borrow money at tax-exempt government rates. They're wholly owned by their customers. And they're governed by public officials elected to office by our customers. And those factors combine to shave 5 to maybe 25% off the cost of generating electricity, even after all the exit fees are paid. And that's enough to invest in extra renewable resources, and sometimes enough to add extra customer programs to what a utility already offers. Because ratepayers own and operate CCAs, there's a mandate for CCA rates to be set in a manner that protect customers from rate shock, such as when a utility's exit fees increase 100% with just 3 days' notice, like happened in January 2016. Unfortunately, the financial protections of CCAs don't exist everywhere yet. Residential customers in large parts of the Central Valley and inland areas of Southern California don't yet have access to operating public power programs. So Sonoma Clean Power and some other CCAs are starting to work with disadvantaged communities to explore and evaluate their options. And I want to thank the Center for Climate Protection here for their work supporting these communities as well. The state could make these transitions easier by providing low-cost bridge loans to help poor regions start public CCAs. And surprisingly little money could produce a big reward. Say a $100 million state loan program could easily launch several CCAs simultaneously, likely generating at least $20 million in annual cost savings to ratepayers, and an estimated $100 million per year in additional construction activity. And based on past experience, those loans could be repaid to the state with interest within, say, 5 years. And a full exit from purchasing and generating electricity could also free up utilities to focus more on grid safety. And in parallel with that process, this PUC has advanced a plan for a central buyer of all reliability services. In turn, has also sponsored AB 56, which would allow the PUC to order advanced procurement by a new state buyer of virtually any kind of resource, based on a potential shortcoming of long-range planning process. essentially on the PUC's speculation that an electric provider might not meet a compliance obligation many years in the future. AB 56 would create a new government agency to buy, sell, and manage these wholesale generation resources for the entire state, at least except for munis. And while it makes sense to stay clear-eyed about PG&E's financial situation and to think ahead about the what-if scenarios for other big utilities, we have to be careful about applying the medicine of a central portfolio manager to all utilities, CCAs, direct access providers, particularly since the bill's author hasn't yet accepted language to ensure the central buyer would only be used for a true backstop function. That is, filling in where a provider had failed to meet their real compliance obligations. That means the bill could still be used by the CPUC to expand control over CCA resources. And that's a problem because CCAs are California's climate solution laboratory. We've invented and launched over 60 new customer programs in the past 5 years alone. And just at Sonoma Clean Power, we've pioneered several new programs that had never been seen before in California. So a manufacturer and dealer incentive program on new and used electric vehicles that it's now been widely copied around California. A free DIY home energy retrofit toolkit. We've placed them in every public library in our territory. An incentive program to rebuild homes lost in the fires to be all electric and powered by renewable energy sources matched to their real-time load. And here I have to pause to thank PG&E and the CPUC for partnering with us on the first major PUC program in California dedicated to fuel shifting from natural gas to renewable electricity. We're also planning a 10,000 square foot advanced energy center here in Santa Rosa, where customers will be able to take classes, try out all electric fuel shifting and energy efficient appliances, purchase them with on-bill financing, and schedule installations. But going back to AB 56 for a minute, I want to ask, why would TURN want a new government entity to manage power sources for CCAs? I've estimated that TURN receives over half its total income from ratepayers in the form of intervenor compensation granted by the PUC. And that means that TURN stands to lose income when ratepayer-owned electric providers like CCAs replace some of the functions of investor-owned utilities. When it comes to questions of public ownership or control of electric service, TURN is financially conflicted. TURN is inherently biased in favor of centralized command and control structures because that's how they earn their money. And that's more than a small problem because TURN's also one of the leading ratepayer advocates at the PUC. But their conflict isn't something they created. It's baked into the system we've invented for paying interveners. And that needs to change quickly if we're going to have paid advocates weighing in on CCAs, municipalization, and the future of PG&E. If the public loses our ability to procure preferred resources, we could risk exciting solutions to the climate crisis that go far beyond Senate Bill 100. Grid Savvy is a perfect example of that. Over the last 4 years, Sonoma Clean Power has begun testing a general-purpose grid reliability platform that may someday provide local and flexible capacity without relying on fossil resources. We started by giving away 2,800 electric vehicle charging stations with special grid-connected controls. And over the next 18 months, we're adding smart thermostats and dispatchable heat pump water heaters to the program. The promise is that by regulating loads both down and up in response to signals we provide, we can do what Senate Bill 100 promised, provide 100% of energy from truly renewable and carbon-free resources without relying on natural gas plants to back up those resources. And that's what people thought they were getting with Senate Bill 100. But the laboratory of CCAs can actually make that happen. So let's protect CCAs and the public's right to accelerating solutions to the climate crisis. And let's make sure everyone has access to these benefits. Thank you.